Good day. One of the empiricists that we are going to discuss today is George Berkeley. He is considered to be the second major figure in British empiricism and was born into a moderately wealthy family near Kilkenny, Ireland. His father was a customs officer who migrated there from England. Berkeley received his BA and MA degrees from Trinity College, Dublin, and taught there for some years. Still in his 20s, he wrote his two main philosophical works, upon which his fame today rests: a treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge on 1710, and three dialogues between Hylas and Philonous on 1713.
Good day, everyone. Contribution to philosophy. According to Berkeley, there are only two kinds of things: spirit and ideas. Spirits are simple, active beings which produce and perceive ideas. Ideas are passive beings which are produced and perceived. For Berkeley, ideas are such images or sensory data that are directly present to our mind, that perceive us in our vivid sense experience or in the less vivid presentations, either memory or an imagination. When Berkeley says that we have an idea of fire, he doesn't mean that we already a concept of fire, but rather we have the experience or memory of seeing heat and bright and yellow-red light, the color of the fire. Thus, for Berkeley would say that it is better to associate the term idea with the words of experience and sensation rather than words of concept and description. Berkeley claimed that there is no such thing as an abstract idea because idea is always a particular image. Thus, the former Berkeley believed it is always in particular image. For instance, we cannot have the picture of a dog in our mind that is big nor little, dark nor light, young nor old. Instead, we can think of it, speak about, and imagine only particular things. We can have a general ideas when we use one particular idea to stand for all other similar particular things. For example, the word dog, we can refer it to the names of dogs such as Spot, Fido, Lassie, and all other particular dogs. Hence, the position of Berkeley here is the version of the nominalism, that universal abstract ideas are not real but merely words.
These are the arguments of George Berkeley against material objects. His first argument illustrates that there is no primary qualities, or the objects around us have no primary qualities because they are all spectator-dependent qualities. This can be understood using Locke's ideas on primary qualities as the innate qualities of an object like size, shape, and the like, and secondary qualities like color, texture, and the like. Given that secondary ones are already spectator-dependent qualities, he explained that primary qualities are also relative to the perceiver, just like how we perceive a size of a certain object, which is dependent on our distance to it. The nearer the object, the bigger it is, and the opposite. Berkeley's second argument is underpinned on the principle of simplicity. In his idealism, it is established that God gives us the sensory information that we need when we perceive certain objects. He would then elucidate that because God does that thing, he does not need an instrument or the material objects for the sensory information to be transmitted to us. It would be a useless middleman, as he would claim. There is only the mind and the ideas around us.
Good day, everyone. I was assigned to introduce to you the problem of God and evil in Berkeley's theory. That's why they came up. Why would an all good God permits the enormous amount of suffering that we see in the world around us? But in the time of Augustine, it was stated there that the existence of God is with the presence of evil in the world. Therefore, in Berkeley's system, God observes all things. To be is to be observed. The problem is especially acute for Berkeley's theory, since God only permits suffering, but he also seems to be the originator of suffering. Has he he injects all external sensory information into our minds. Therefore, on Berkeley thinks that we don't have bodies, only soul, and there is no material bodies, only soul and God. Therefore, God is the source of our perception, and it comes up that God gives us our soul. That's why we put the perception of what body is. Therefore, he argues that the problem with God and evil is no more severe with his idealist theory than it is for those who believe in the existence of matter. Berkeley's second response, though, does attempt to solve the problem in a more positive way. According to Berkeley, evil does not consist of outward action, but inward attitudes. Because it was like Descartes says that God, it was Descartes says that we could be deceived by an evil, but Berkeley says no. God is the deceiver of all. That's why God in evil problem is God plays same role of what evil is. Therefore, we end up hoping that God is playing role same as what evil says for Berkeley's system of idea. Thank you and God bless.
David Hume. So David Hume is one of the 18th century philosophers and one of the Enlightenment era philosophers. So he's a Scottish philosopher, historian, economist, and essayist known especially for his philosophical empiricism and skepticism. So the two works of David Hume is for his empiricism or skeptical argument is his Origin of Ideas and the Association of Ideas. So he has a notorious reputation as a skeptical philosopher, and in many ways he carried on the skeptical tradition forged in ancient Greece. So basically doubting the mental faculties or the cognitive perception of us to the world. That is skeptic tradition he's trying to forge. So the two main building blocks upon which his empiricist philosophy is founded is the origin of ideas and association of ideas. So the first is the origin of ideas. So he said that thoughts and ideas flow through our minds endlessly. The ideas of people, houses, music concerts, scientific discoveries, God, and so forth. So where do all these ideas came from as it flows in the inner mind? So Hume's answer to this, being an empiricist, is that all of our ideas come from two types of experiences, or what he called impressions. So the first is the outward impressions through our five senses. So outward impressions are basically our experience as we observe the things outside our mental faculty. And the inward impressions through these are true reflection on our mental operation. So these are the memories stored in our mind from the things that we have observed outside, from the outside impressions. So Hume offers two proofs for his position that all ideas are copied from impressions. So first, that he says that if you take any idea you have and examine its components, you'll find that it traces back to outward or inward one or more sensory experience or inward feeling. So basically what he's trying to say is we think about a thing, um, even if we rationally thought about it, we think about the experience that we have or the sensory feeling that we have in it, either on the observation that we have from the outward or either on the inward itself in the memories that we have of a certain thing. So second is that he says that if you go in your entire life without having a particular type of sensation, that you would lack the corresponding idea of that sensation. So for example, a blind man, being blind from the moment he is born, when he or she is born, he will not have the impression or the idea of the color of the of a certain tree because he has not seen it or he has not you doesn't have the type of sensation of it. So next thing is that the association of ideas. So according to him is that our flow of ideas is connected together by three principles of association. So the first principles of association is the resemblance, where one thought leads to another because of resembling features that they have. So for example, when he looks at a certain gun, he will thought about violence. He will thought about a soldier, a an officer or a law enforcer. This is resemblance. So the contiguity, that is one thing being in close proximity or to another. So when we thought about the moon, we will think about the stars besides it. We will thought about the dark side, the light of it, or we will thought about when it happened. Is it evening or yeah, something like that. So next is the cause and effect. So the example is this of this is that when we see someone with a scar, we will thought about that something happened to him, an accident, or someone made that scar to him. That is the the causation itself.
One of Hume's aspirations was to help stop the spread of religious fanaticism and superstition, or anywhere is this more evident than in his attack against the miracle belief. 3 points must be explained in order to fully comprehend what Hume is saying. So here it is. This is not just an unexpected occurrence that happens at the perfect time. He doesn't believe in miracles which we can see for ourselves. We will never be able to go back in time and verify with complete certainty if any purported miracle occurred. We can only think about whether the evidence supporting a miraculous story is persuasive enough for us to believe it. As a result, Hume's explicit view is that it is never rational to believe allegations of natural law infractions. Hume makes a number of reasons opposing miracles, the most important of which is this: it is never reasonable to believe in reports of miracles, since those reports will always be outweighed by stronger evidence for consistent laws of nature. According to Hume, to examine the evidence both for and against the miracle, as if we were weighing it in the pans of a balancing scale. The credibility of the witnesses provides evidence in support of the miracle. They're relaying what they've observed with their own eyes, and we've known them to be trustworthy in the past. The proof against the miracle, on the other hand, is the collected experience that we have in support of universal natural rules. Hume presents four additional arguments in supplementary to this major argument against miracle belief. First, he says the witnesses who report miracles typically lack credibility or the lack of quality support. Second, Hume argues that human beings are predisposed to enjoy hearing sensational stories, and this creates an instant audience for accounts of miraculous events, in which our nature's fragility raises doubt in the veracity of such spectacular statements. Third, Hume states that reports of miracles typically come from pre-scientific and primitive countries whose cultures are obsessed with the supernatural. Fourth, Hume argues that reports of miracles support rival religious systems and thus nullify each other. Miracles have been reported in almost every religious practice across the globe. Just like Christian miracles strengthen the Christian salvation mission, in Muslim miracles, for example, reinforce the Muslims' message of salvation. The issue is that these religions are rivals and frequently cast doubt on the validity of the other. The Christian religious tradition, according to Hume, not only contains stories of miracles, but it is also predicated on miraculous events in the lives of biblical figures. Nonetheless, Hume maintains that it is legitimate to dismiss these reports even in this situation. According to Hume, the evidence that we have in favor of consistent laws of nature is overwhelming and will always outweigh even the best evidence in favor of a reported miraculous violation of a law of nature. He writes, "A miracle is a violation of the laws of nature, and as a firm and unalterable experience has established these laws, the proof against a miracle, from the very nature of the fact, is as is as entire as any argument from experience can possibly be imagined. There must therefore be a uniform experience against every miraculous event. Otherwise, the event would not merit the appellation, and as a uniform experience amounts to be a proof, there is a here direct and full proof from the nature of the fact against the existence of any miracle. Since miracles are characterized as violations of natural laws, any supposed miracle story, according to Hume, is immediately countered by the enormous proof that we now have of natural laws that are constant. According to Hume, the appropriate thing to do is to proportion our belief to the evidence.
Good day everyone, I am Yobel and I'm going to give some insight about the views of David Hume to natural belief. According to Hume, the underlying structure of human reason itself is inherently flawed and thus completely untrustworthy. Because Hume's doctrine of natural belief allows that certain beliefs are justifiably held by all men without regard to the quality of the evidence which may be produced in their favor. For example, our belief in an external world and belief in the veracity of or conformity to facts of our senses. So that's why basically the human reasoning process, even at its very best, is on a collision course with itself and regularly contradicts itself. For Hume, the most central questions about human existence are incapable of being adequately answered because of the inherent flaws of human reasoning process. So, human nature has embedded within us some very concrete natural belief which enable us to get through the day. Nature forces us to believe in external objects, casual relationships, personal identity, moral responsibility, and a host of other notions that are crucial for our normal routines. So, because of the natural belief, because belief comes knowledge only when the truth of a proposition becomes evident to the believer. So when radical skepticism causes us to mentally crash, all that we need to do is back off from our philosophical inquiries and let our natural beliefs take over. Because natural belief is something, a sort of um, liveliness or vividness that accompanies the perception of an idea. So, in other words, a belief is a vivid or lively idea. It is also a mental attitude of acceptance or assent toward a proposition without a full intellectual knowledge required to guarantee its truth. So this vividness is originally possessed by some of the objects of awareness, by impression and by a simple memory images of them. So Hume also concludes that belief must some sentiment or feeling arose in us independently of our wills, which accompanies those ideas that constitute them. It is a particular way or manner of conceiving an idea that is generated by the circumstances in which we find ourselves. That's all, and I hope you get some idea. Thank you, and God bless.